Thank you so much for joining. I would like to cover another parity condition, which is called international Fisher effect. It's quite similar to uncovered interest rate parity, which I discussed and explained in another video. Reason here, why do we use international Fisher effect is we want to get an understanding about how nominal interest rates in one country and in another country affects our expected future spot rate. So idea here is we have a current spot exchange rate. This is given. There's no uncertainty. We know the exchange rate today. We know that two countries, there are expectations about interest rate when you would like to invest your money. D and F, here many times D is domestic, F is foreign. Question is, if you are neither part of any country, then like what is DF? It doesn't really matter. The only thing is you need to be consistent. Yeah, so everything related to country D, whatever country D in your example is, needs to be in the numerator, and whatever country F is needs to be in the denominator. Yeah, also your spot exchange rate needs to be expressed accordingly. What is the method behind? Why should it adjust? I will explain this in a short example. In general, currencies of countries with high interest rates should depreciate relative to currencies of countries with low interest rate, and currencies of countries with low interest rate should appreciate relative to currencies of countries with high interest rate. It's not so obvious because let's take an example. We have UK, and I use this example in another video because, again, the formulas for uncovered interest rate parity is quite similar. 1 year interest rate UK, 12% pounds, and interest rate, nominal interest rate in the US, 9% US dollar. Let's assume the current exchange rate is 1.5 over 1 pound. And we are concerned with understanding what the future expected exchange rate is between those countries. Then we use the formula for international Fisher effect, which you see here, which is in our example D is US, D is US, and F is the other way. UK is F, UK, and D is US. So everything related to the US we put in the numerator. Here US 1.5, very important, not the other way, US here. And then for UK, pounds, and UK interest rate here. Just be consistent, again, doesn't matter which country you consider domestic or foreign. Then you type it in your calculator, and then what you see is the future expected exchange rate should be 1.46 US dollar per 1 pound, which means the number has decreased from 1.5 to 1.46, and GBP is our base currency. That's our product. That's the currency we want to talk about. So you always put the currency that you want to talk about in your denominator as your base currency, unit of 1, and then we can talk about this currency. So here, because the number has decreased, we know that the GBP should depreciate against the dollar. And let's just see whether this makes sense. UK has higher interest rate. Currencies of countries with high interest rate compared to the other, 12 is higher, should depreciate, which is the case here. Makes sense. Yeah. Only question, why? Why should this happen? Because UK sounds quite positive. You can put your money there. Interest rates are higher. So why is it that the UK or the British pound loses value? The reason is, and I explained this in another video when we look at Fisher effect, there is a relationship between interest rate, nominal interest rate, and inflation. And they move in the same direction, which I will explain in another video, which means if one country has a higher nominal interest rate, it has a higher inflation and vice versa. So nominal interest rate and inflation, they move in the same direction, meaning if UK has 12% interest rate, we would assume, simply speaking, that UK has a higher, in this term, 12% inflation, so has a higher inflation. Doesn't need to be 12%, but at least has a higher inflation than the US. And because UK has higher inflation than the US dollar, or US has higher inflation, that means the pound loses value and is worth less because the inflation in the UK is higher. Yeah, which we covered when we looked at inflation, purchasing power parity. You know how to calculate. That's why the reason whenever we look at interest rates is actually similar to the calculation we have done for relative purchasing power parity. Yeah, that's the reason. Last heads up. The formula for international Fisher effect is quite similar to the uncovered interest rate parity. It's just how you interpret the different concepts. The formula is the same. International Fisher effect, that's the formula we have used here, states that exchange rates adjust based on inflation expectations. So we see inflation, interest rate expectations, which are embedded. So here based on inflation expectations, which are embedded in interest rates. That's what I said with Fisher effect. They belong together. And uncovered interest rate parity states that exchange rate adjusts based on interest rate differentials, which is basically the same. It's a bit slightly different interpretation, whether you look at exchange rate and look at, interest rate differentials, or whether you look at interest rate differentials first and adjust your exchange rate. Same formula, quite similar. Good. That's what you need to know. So always higher interest rates, the underlying concept, higher inflation, which means the currency with a higher nominal interest rate will depreciate, which you can see with this formula. Thank you so much for listening. See you in another video. Bye-bye.